So what we'll cover, I want to talk about the difference between a go bag and a stay box. And a lot of people talk about their disaster preparedness supplies as a go bag that they're putting together. Here in Seattle, which is where I think most of you guys are, we don't really evacuate. Earthquakes are not something you can run from. We don't get heads up like you do for a hurricane. So there is no running from it. It's not like a fire that you can typically see coming. Earthquakes happen suddenly. It's our big disaster here. So we do not, for the most part, evacuate. And you certainly do not want to run out of a house during an earthquake. It always kind of strikes me as strange when people talk about their go bag. They're going to take their 2 weeks of supplies and go where? I like to talk about these two different things as your go bag, which is what we will talk about this evening, and everything else is your stay box, like your kit. It's the water that you have stored in your house. It's the emergency toilet you plan on using. It's the food that you have set aside. It's the extra batteries. It's all the stuff that you tuck aside, hopefully tuck aside, to make those first couple weeks after a disaster less difficult on you and your family, you and your household. Go bag versus stay box. We're going to talk about a go bag tonight, and it is very different than the conversations I usually have around disasters. We are going to talk about your go bag. We will talk about a medical emergency. We will talk about a fire and how to handle that. And briefly, I'll talk through how to do a home inventory, much easier than I think most of us think. And then if you'd like to stay online and talk about how to safe keep your photos and your paperwork, whether that's the title to your car or marriage certificates, birth certificates, divorce decrees, all that kind of stuff. So super sensitive paperwork, important paperwork, and photos. If you'd like to talk about places to store those safely, I'm happy to stay online and answer questions. Typically, I would incorporate that into this class, but the last time I taught it, after I went through all of that information, I found out that nobody online was comfortable putting anything in the cloud. So when I heard that, I went, I'm not going to talk about it if folks are not interested in that option. A go bag is what you grab as you run out of your home or walk rapidly. The way I designed it was if you had a medical emergency, meaning either you or somebody in your household is getting into the back of an ambulance and you're headed to the hospital, that's a medical emergency. So what would you like to have with you, either as the patient or as a family member? What would you like to have with you to make that first 6 hours in the waiting room a little less painful? And then also we talk about what would it be nice to have with you if you had to leave your house because there was a fire and you had time to safely grab this go bag. What would you like to have with you? Again, go bag versus stay box. Go bag is what we're talking about tonight. The stay box is the typical earthquake preparedness supplies that you should have in your house. On the piece of paper I sent out with a reminder for class today was this list. Everything I'm talking about here is on your list. Put it together, check it off as you go. So in our go bag, and we have a family of 3, everything that I'm talking about here fits in a normal size backpack. It's really an average size backpack that you would see any kid taking to school. It's not ginormous at all. And these are the articles of clothing that I packed in there: socks, t-shirt, and underwear for all 3 of us. Toiletries. I'm going to stop for just a second and talk about medications. When we have a new bottle of medication come into the house, that bottle goes in our go bag. Our go bag is sitting in our hall closet by the front door. The new bottle goes in that go bag. The old bottle, the bottle that was in the go bag, goes into the bathroom. For a while, I may have 2 bottles in the bathroom. I'm not going to combine pills because that's usually a bad idea. They have different expiration dates and there's different batch numbers. And if you ever get a bottle of bad medicine and the pharmacy needs to contact you because the pills you're taking are contaminated or something, you want to make sure that you can identify that bottle. So don't mix bottles of pills, but the new bottle goes in the go bag. The bottle that was in the go bag goes in the bathroom, which is where we take our medicines. Maybe yours is bedside table or near the coffee pot, or who knows. As soon as the old bottle is empty, we throw it away. So that's how we keep rotating medicine in our house. And we always have the freshest medicine, and we always have medicine, and we always have the freshest medicine in the go bag. So that's how we rotate it through our house. It seems to work really well. It took the household a couple times to get used to that idea, but now it's just kind of second nature. Again, all this stuff I'm talking about is on your to-do list. This is stuff that you would like to have with you, again, because you left your house and you're in the back or the front of an ambulance, or if you are leaving your house because it's on fire and it is safe to stop and grab this bag. These are the things you might want to have with you. Extra set of contacts, glasses, mints, keys. For each of our cars, we have 2 sets of keys. So one is the one that we use every single day, and the other set is in the go bag. It may not be the most convenient place to leave the keys, but everybody in the household knows where they are. If you ever need the second set for some reason, you know right where to go to them. We have a garage door opener in there. And then we also have a set of our house keys, because we never know what we're not going to be able to take as we rush out the door. Paperwork. This is the kind of stuff you want to gather ahead of time and just jot it down on a 3x5 card or whatever and throw it in that bag. You want to get to know your neighbors. You can't call your sister in Arizona or something like that to go check on your pet. You need a neighbor, that somebody that you're friendly enough with to go, hey, Tony, I think I might have left my front door open. Would you mind checking the house and locking the door if it's not locked? Or I have a spare key under a rock or whatever. Can you go check on my pet? Write down those phone numbers, because it's very possible that you might leave the house without your phone. And you're sitting in the emergency room and you know there's people you could call to help out, but you don't have their phone number. So write it down just in case you don't have your phone with you. An out-of-town contact phone number. This is a good idea for many reasons. It's typically more of a mass disaster kind of situation, not just your household is impacted, but it's a good idea to have this person's phone number wrote down anywhere. And I'll tell you about it. Really good for when self-service is overwhelmed. This out-of-town contact person should be in Spokane, Washington, or further east. You don't want them north of us. You don't want them south of us. You don't want them in Portland, Oregon, or Vancouver, Washington, because they might be involved in the same earthquake. You want this person to be Spokane, Washington, or further east, and they relay text messages between household members, because sometimes it's harder to get a text message across the city than it is in and out of the city. I've talked about the out-of-town contact person in numerous classes, so hopefully it's not the first time you've heard it. Really good person to identify and write down their phone number, because you just never know when you're going to need it. One of the things I thought about when I was developing this class was, let's say there's a fire in my house and there's enough damage in our house that we can't spend the night, or heaven forbid, it's a complete and total loss. I know my neighbors would come to me and say, Ann, we'd be more than happy to take you and your family in. Come spend the night with us. And that might be a great option. I think for my family, we would be more comfortable if that neighbor would just drive us to a hotel. But once we're at the hotel, if my credit cards, my wallet is inside the house and I can't get access to it, how do I pay for a hotel room? So this is what I did, because I called. They would take cash. I believe a hotel room would take cash. I called just one hotel and I said, would you ever take a check for a hotel room? And they said, no. We have a credit card that has a very low, it's never used. The only one we even have is in this go bag. So if the go bag ever got stolen, I would know right away which card it was, and it would be easy to turn it off, because I figured that was the easiest way for us to pay for a hotel room or any of those incidentals. And I didn't want to have to rely on having my wallet with me. One of the other phone numbers we have written down is if our credit cards were in the house and they're burned down, or we don't think we're going to be able to get access to them for a while or whatever, I want to be able to turn them off. So I wrote down the 1-800 numbers for all of the credit cards that we have so that we can put a hold on them or whatever. So that's another phone number that you want to write down. And then insurance information. That's kind of a no-brainer. Write down the policy number and the phone number. Pen and paper, just because it might come in super handy, whether we're talking about a fire or we're talking about you being in the emergency room. And then health information. If you're in the emergency room and they're starting to ask you questions about your family member or your household member, and you either don't know or just cannot remember it at the time, it would be very helpful to have it written down or have it available in some form in order to give it to the folks in the emergency room. I will send this after the fire document. And what I did was I looked at a bunch of brochures and forms that fire departments all over the country have put together. And I pulled out really just the essentials so that if I'm sitting in a hotel room the night of the fire, the day after the fire, whatever, I have some kind of go-to checklist of what I should be doing. So I'm not starting from scratch. And then I also have a roll of quarters in there just because if I'm sitting in a hotel lobby or a hospital emergency room waiting room and I need a snack, I want to be able to get it and not have to beg for $1 because I don't have any cash on me. And then you can put blank checks in your go bag if you want to. Roll quarters, I already talked about that. Passport is an idea. Personally, we do not have our passports in the go bag, but it's an idea. It's a fabulous piece of identification. Chargers. I don't know about you, but we have quite a few chargers that are extra. Every time you upgrade your phone or whatever, you get a new one. Any extras we have, we throw into the go bag. So we have ones for most of our devices. Flashlight, we have we have headlamps, but whatever. Something to do for those hours of waiting somewhere, whether it's poetry or cards or a religious text of some kind, crosswords, good book, whatever. Something to do might be very helpful. If you have kids, think about something very special for them to keep them entertained. And then if you have a pet, make sure that you throw stuff in there for your pet. Shot record, food, at least a meal or two, a toy, a leash, and then poop bags. So again, household of 3, all of this stuff fits in our go bag and there's plenty of room left. If the emergency we're talking about is a medical emergency, let's talk about summoning an ambulance. I have the address for our house on the back of our closet door, the hall closet, that closet door that most of us have near our front door, whether it's an apartment or a house, either one. Typically, there's a closet up there. I just took a 3x5 card, I wrote down our address, and I taped it up there. That way, if somebody is in our house and I'm the one that's not doing well, I can point them to where our address is. So just in case somebody forgets it, our address is typed up there. There is a way to alert first responders to your health conditions, and it's a website. So get access to a computer, go to Smart 911, and you have links to that, and put in information there that you would like those EMTs to have on the drive to your house. It can be what medications you are currently on, chronic conditions you have, allergies you have. You can tell them that you can't access your house from your actual street address. You have to go to a different door. Lots of different information you can throw in there. And this is information that you think would be helpful for EMTs to have on their way to your house. And to my knowledge, I've asked, Seattle 911 operators have access to Smart 911, and they will get that information to the EMTs. I'm not exactly sure how, but I know it's shared here in Seattle. So could be a life-saving website for you to know about. Definitely go on there, explore, put in the information you're comfortable with. You can always wear a medical alert, bracelet, necklace, or tattoo even. Folks have tattoos. A lot of folks have asked me about putting information on their refrigerator, like their list of medications or their list of chronic conditions or something like that. I've talked to EMTs and they do not check the fridge. That is not, they're not taught to do it. They don't do it as a matter of course, nothing like that. So it really won't help you to put it on the fridge. There's this mistaken idea that EMTs are going to scour your house for information. If, say, you're alone and nobody's around to talk to them, they won't check your fridge. Really quickly, I'm going to talk to you about an in case of emergency wallet card. And I've given you a link to one that I thought was really pretty good. I think, yeah, there's a copy of it. So this is a dummy one that they have on their website, but it's really basic information, phone numbers, blood type, chronic conditions, that kind of stuff. So feel free to print up one of those, stick it in your wallet. Another good idea is to take your emergency contact person's phone number and add it to your phone's locked screen. So if your phone is available and the EMTs touch it, they wouldn't be able to get into your phone because it's typically phones are locked. But in this case, if they touch it, what flashes on that first screen before you actually get into the phone is your emergency contact's phone number. I've included directions on how to do it. Every phone's a little bit different, and I don't know that the directions are completely up to date with the newest phones, but give it a shot. It's just a really good idea. If the emergency department is asking health questions about your partner or your household member who's there, there's not tons of information on this little wallet card. So there's other ways to pass on this information. And again, I've given you access to a more complete wallet card. It's CVS Pharmacy. It's really pretty good. One of the downsides of paper is that you have to keep it updated. So if big things change on here, you're going to have to go back to this particular link or a link, fill in your new information and print it, well, fill it all in again and print it out. So the downside of a wallet card or any kind of paper is that you have to keep it updated. If you just write it on paper, type it out or write it out on a piece of paper and throw that in your go bag. I think the idea, and I've been in situations like this before, where it's so easy to just hand the emergency room doctor or even your primary care manager a piece of paper with your health history on it. And they can scan through there and figure out what it is they need instead of you going through your history when you're distressed. So again, paper's great. You got to keep it up to date or it doesn't really do you any good. One of the things we do in my household is we all have the same kind of phone. So we have the ability to share a note, and all of us have a different note called medical. If I'm sitting in the primary care manager's office or I just left my doctor's office and something changed, I can stop right there, pull up my phone, change something on that note in my phone. So it's always up to date. And in our case, my family members have access to that. So if they had their phone with them, they would be able to pull that out and answer any questions the emergency room personnel might have. In our case, we have a paper copy in our go bag, and then we have this information saved on our phones. If you're going to make your own document, I'm not going to go through this, but if you're going to write that out on a piece of paper, this is just some of the stuff you need to address. Some of it may pertain to you, maybe not all of it. That was the medical emergency, how to handle that and things to think about and plan and put together now for a medical emergency. Now we're going to move to a fire. If there's a fire in your household or whatever building you're in. So this is our scenario. There's a smoke alarm at 2 a.m. Maybe you jump out of bed and leave the house like that. Maybe you throw on clothes. You're always going to want to have shoes under your bed. You may not use them if there truly is a fire, but it's not a bad idea to have them there. So an old pair of shoes under your bed, a light source under your bed is always a good idea, especially for earthquakes. If there's a smoke alarm at 2 a.m., you're going to round up people and pets. And if it's safe, grab your go bag. So did a little bit of research, what people regret leaving behind if their home is burned and all this stuff is destroyed. And you could guess this, family memorabilia. In our house, we have what's called a treasure bag. I got that, I stole that name from somewhere else. We put the things that are dear to us, but that aren't like on display somewhere in the house. It's not a bag, it's actually a box. It's like a shoe box. We put them in there and it's sitting, our go bag is sitting on top of this box. Physical, tangible, small things that we would like to save from a fire if possible. So we have a treasures box of little things. This is my hall closet. So here's my red bag. You can tell it's a normal backpack. It's maybe half full, if even that. These are photos we have. This is, oh, it is bigger than I was thinking it was a shoebox. Anyway, this is our treasures bag or box. Again, we just threw stuff in there that meant something to us. And then we also have a list. And again, this is on the back of my front hall closet door. I have one 3x5 card with the address, and the other 3x5 card has a list of things if we had time to grab stuff. And this is very iffy, but if there was time, if we lived in a flood zone and somebody had given us a heads up that the levee was being breached, this would be very handy, not for an earthquake necessarily, but If we had more time to grab stuff, what would we grab? And the reason we wrote this down is I don't want to be in the position of having to think, if I had to evacuate, if there is a hazardous material spill and I'm being told you have 5 minutes to get in your car and drive away, what would I want to grab? I don't want to have to think. The story behind this piece of this talk is my husband. When he was young, they were told that exact scenario. The levee's being breached. You've got moments. Grab your family, get in the car. His parents took time to take their speakers, which were expensive speakers, took their speakers, pulled them up off the floor and put them on top of the kitchen cabinets. So they saved the speakers, but all of their photo albums were destroyed. There, I have like 3 pictures of my husband as a child. I know if they could go back, I know it would be reversed and they would have saved the photo albums. They just panicked and that's what they grabbed. That's what they took care of. Don't put yourself in a position of having to think and making the wrong decision. Again, we're trying to reduce regrets. So make a list of what you would grab if you had time to grab more. Here's my list. It only makes sense to our family, but that's the stuff. Personal memoirs or other things people regret leaving behind. I guess because they're probably not scanned and saved anywhere. Photographs, of course. Passports and documents, because recreating all that is really difficult. And their cell phone. So that's what people regret leaving behind. Photographs and documents are a big one. Practice fire drills or medical emergency drills with your family. If you have young kids, it's very easy. You can make it into a game and it's kind of fun and you don't feel stupid doing it because supposedly you're doing it for your kids' sake. A little bit harder when you have a house full of adults. But if you don't practice it, at least talk about it. Another regret people have is not having renter's insurance. So seriously consider that if that is not part of your life at the moment. We're going to talk about fire safe because of the importance of saving photos and paperwork. People put paper copies and portable drives, electronic drives in them. I'm just going to go through this information. Most house fires burn at 1500 to 2000 degrees Fahrenheit. And a typical room, it will take a little bit over an hour to burn if nothing, if nobody's fighting the fire. So in an hour, a little bit over an hour, that room will be destroyed. I thought this was interesting because so much of our furniture is now like foam or plastic, petroleum based. Fires are hotter and faster. Something to know about fire safes. They are not all good for all things, kind of like fire extinguishers. They're not all good for all types of fires. The fire rating they have is what they can keep the internal temperature of that fire safe to for an hour in that typical burning room. Most of the fire safes that you can go to, Ace Hardware, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever, the typical ones that you see, Costco, that kind of stuff, those are probably only good for paper and your passport because the inside will get up to 350 degrees. Digital media and tape recordings or slides cannot handle that temperature. It truly takes a different kind of safe, and these are not cheap. I have to admit, I have digital media stored in our fire safe, which is only good for paper, but I also have backups in multiple other places. If you think a fire safe is the greatest thing ever, it is for paper. It's not for all kinds of media. They're not burglar proof. So you might want to think about bolting them down. So if you don't have a fire safe, but you're thinking about getting one, I would urge you to gather what you plan to put in it, gather it together, sort through it, sift through it, only keep the important stuff, get rid of as much as you can, and then go buy your fire safe instead of buying it and either it being too small or too big, because they are not super cheap. Another option for securing your paperwork is a trusted person. We actually have done this where our photos are saved onto thumb drives and we've mailed them to a friend. Just another backup system. Their house isn't going to burn down the same day ours is. Going to talk about the home inventory and then we'll take another kind of break. I would urge you to do this. It seems like a big deal, but really you can get it done in just a little bit over an hour, maybe not even that long for a typical house. Find a time to do it and do it every single year. Get rid of the old one and keep the new one, or keep them all, doesn't matter. This is how we did it. I had my cell phone and I talked and walked. You get my voice and you get the video. You can take photos, still photos, or you can do a video, your call. One room at a time. Turn on all the lights. So before you start, turn on all the lights, open all the doors and cabinets. Start on one side of the room and systematically work your way around. It's kind of the only way to make sure that you get everything, because it will quickly become confusing as to what you have gotten video of and what you haven't. Open all the drawers, cabinets, and closets. Spend time on the expensive items. Pause the video or don't pause the video and go around to the back of your TV and get the model number or whatever. Spend time on the things that are really going to matter. Get close-up shots of model numbers and serial numbers. Go through bookcases and jewelry boxes, because that's a lot of where the valuable stuff is. And then, bookcases are good to go through, just because you'll never remember what all's on there. Plan for storage. 1 hour of video is 1 to 2 gigabytes. Once you have this information, either as a video or however, you've got to figure out where to store it. So that's just an idea of, if you're going to put it on a thumb drive or a hard drive, that's some ideas of size. Perfection is not the goal. This isn't a home movie you're making. It really is just get it done. And more than likely you will never need it, but you will be so happy if you have one and you have to file a claim with your insurance company. Couple last things to do, and again, this is on your to-do list. Save Washington's poison control number in your phone. Luckily, I've never had to use it, but I know it's there, and that makes me very happy. Save the closest emergency room address somewhere. I would put it in your phone. I would write it on a 3x5 card and throw it in your glove box. This is not something you're going to have. You're not going to want to have to think about, how do I get there, if you're truly scrambling for an emergency room. And do the same thing for your pet. I learned to do this because we were a military family. We moved around a lot. And it was one of the first things we did when we moved to a new spot, was find the closest emergency room for us and our pet and record that information somewhere, because it's just not something you do very often. I'm going to talk about a virtual private network. And there's a little better explanation on your to-do list. I would encourage you to download one of these, and there's lots of companies that offer you a virtual private network. I gave you a link to a resource that I find to be very trustworthy. It's called Wired. They run articles all the time on the best VPN for 2021. So they have a list of, I didn't even read all the way through it. There's probably 8 of them. Just read through them, the pros and the cons of each of them, and pick the one that makes the most sense for you. Let me back up. The reason for a virtual private network is if you are somewhere using public Wi-Fi. So this is Starbucks or your favorite coffee shop or the emergency room of your local hospital, or a hotel room, and you're using Wi-Fi that the hotel provides. Any kind of public Wi-Fi, if you are doing anything that's sensitive, doing your banking or sending sensitive information to anyone, working with an insurance company, anything like that, you want to use what's called a virtual private network. That keeps your correspondence from your phone or your tablet or your laptop. That keeps your correspondence from you to wherever it's going. It keeps it private. It keeps it safe. So it's like a tunnel, I think is how they describe them. I would encourage you, if you are out and about and using public Wi-Fi, and you might accidentally pass information that you would not want anybody in the public to have, look into a virtual private network. They are not free, but they're not super expensive either. I would encourage you to keep learning. I have a disaster preparedness class coming up. So this is one that's really centered around earthquakes. It is a series of 6 classes. They start on a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. They're only 30 minutes. There's 2 topics every Wednesday night. You leave there with a to-do list, a manageable size to-do list, much smaller than what you're getting today. Couple things to do in between Wednesdays. They start on January 12th and it'll go for 6 weeks. Work on the list I just gave you. Hopefully you have no regrets. There's my email. It's on your handout as well.